Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of Pirate Radio. We'll see if I've finally figured out my mic settings. No promises. It's pretty much just kind of how this works. But I digress. We're just going to power through like we normally do. Right, guys? Right. This episode, this installment, this soundbite podcast, whatever we're calling this, live stream, I want to talk about inalienable rights. We in America we're guaranteed protections of our inalienable rights, which are outlined in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States. I guess let's start off with one very hot topic already that most people seem to disagree with, but usually cannot defend at all, and that is that voting is not a right, it is a privilege. So with that being said, our rights, so many people don't understand this, and I'm guilty of that because our education system lacks a lot of education. Most people think that our rights come from the Constitution. They don't understand, they can't make the connection, or not taught the connection from the Declaration of Independence, where we talk about inalienable rights. They think that your rights, our rights as Americans, come from the Constitution and that the government grants you the rights. This is why voting is not a right. This is my base argument for why voting is not a right, because it is only granted by the government in the Constitution. It has an age limit, and it has some very dubious beginnings at the very least, but I'm sure I'll touch on that quite a bit later with what voting is and is not. I want to get into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and things of that nature. So there is another, I guess this episode is going to be about common misconceptions about rights and what they are and what they are not. Trying to define what a right is very difficult for most people. It's very difficult to explain to someone who has no basis for in American culture, in the American Constitution, the American way of what a right actually constitutes. The best way that I've ever found to describe it, and I'm open to being coached up interpretations on this, is basically it is the expression of individual liberty, because your right for, let's say, or your right to own a firearm and shoot said firearm kind of ends where mine begins. You know, your freedom ends where mine begins, vice versa, kind of that nature. But without getting into clear-cut definitions and some sort of like very deep thought on what a right is, let's move on. I have some kind of radical views on like the First Amendment. First Amendment, freedom of speech, expression, religion, right to assemble, freedom of the press, things of that nature. I am of the firm belief that both the First and the Second Amendment are completely absolute. There are no limitations whatsoever to either the First or the Second Amendment. There are none. I'll start with the First Amendment. People will say, well, what about an incitement to violence? Go fuck yourself. I don't know what that means. You can say, oh, well, so-and-so said X, Y, and Z that we should go attack Joe Bob or whatever. Well, I grew up with the saying that was, if somebody told you to jump off a bridge, would you go do it? Was someone inciting you to jump off the bridge? I don't know, I guess, but you still jumped off the bridge like a moron. So incitement to violence, incitement to whatever, that's nothing more than a pathway to silence you. That's all that is. That is a pathway for any government, be it state, local, federal, whatever, to take away your right to speak. Well, you say, oh, okay, but you can't slander or libel someone. Those are those are not criminal things. I understand that. I think there is a criminal code that is about libel or slander. That shit came from congressmen because they didn't want to get criticized, basically. And those are unconstitutional. I can say whatever I want about whomever I want. If they have a problem with it, then they can take me to civil court, and a jury of our peers or a judge or whomever, a court is going to decide whether I libeled or slandered that person. That's how that works, okay? Oh, but you can't yell fire in a theater. Yes, you can, okay? That got overturned. You can yell whatever the hell you want in a theater, and a lot of people do that when they're not on their phone, ruining your movie experience. So, you can do that. The First Amendment is completely absolute. Your freedom of speech is completely absolute. Your freedom to assemble is pretty much completely absolute. Your freedom of religion is completely absolute. It is not freedom from religion, it is freedom of religion. No state can make any establishment of a state religion, of one religion. It's just not possible. This becomes slightly problematic when we factor in some of the more, I don't know, explosive forms of Islam. You blowing yourself up is not an expression of your religion. You plotting to do said exploding of yourself is not a freedom of your religion. That is a criminal conspiracy. Has to be proven in a court of law. That's conspiracy. And last I checked, I've never really read the Quran, but I'm willing to bet that there's nothing that says you should strap yourself with a vest full of ball bearings and clack it off in a crowded cafe or theater or bus or whatever. Probably not on the menu of the Quran. Probably not in the teachings. But the First Amendment is completely absolute. There's no asterisks on the First Amendment. There is no constitutional authority that would give the federal government. So that's the basis. Let's start with this too. Let's go back. The basis of outlying, and there were plenty of founding fathers who did not want to enumerate, i.e. list, rights, because they figured, their thought was, if you list out these rights, then someone's going to say, well, it's not listed in the Bill of Rights, so therefore you don't have the right to, whatever that they thought of later, things of that nature, which makes sense. But you also have the enumeration clause. I think it's the Ninth Amendment that talks about any right not listed, not enumerated here is not necessarily null and void, doesn't exist. And then you have the 10th Amendment, which gives power to the states, power to the people, so on and so forth. But the Bill of Rights are enshrined the way that they are. They're constitutionally protected because this is a list of things government has no business touching. They're not allowed to regulate speech. They're not allowed to regulate arms. They're not allowed to illegally search and seize you. They're not allowed to place soldiers in your home, and so on and so on and so on. And they're all absolute, completely absolute. The First Amendment, absolute as absolute gets. Okay? Goddamn. Apparently a battle of a sore throat all of a sudden. Not sore, but dry throat. He got a little dry throat. We're completely absolute in that. Getting back to freedom of religion. I don't understand how any public school is allowed to restrict religion. That makes zero sense. Freedom of assembly, freedom of religion. Now, you can have a rigid structure in which you're supposed to be in class at these hours or these times, in between these times, but there is no basis that would prevent anyone from creating an organization that operated after hours or in an off time that was a religious group. There is nothing that the Constitution allows for a child to not be able to pray. I guess you get into a weird spot where if you have an authority figure leading the prayer over an intercom, in person, what have you, maybe we get in some slightly dubious things there because that is a government employee. That is your direct government direct interaction with a government person. Usually the first government person we ever come in contact to is a teacher. As bad or as good as they may be, that is going to be the first government official you probably ever come in contact with as a child. And it's usually not pleasant because even they don't understand what the hell I'm talking about. They don't understand generally. These are generalizations. Everybody calm down. That they don't understand where rights come from. They're endowed by our Creator. They're inalienable. They're basically a natural thing that exists because we exist. This is where voting becomes a clear-cut privilege to me because, one, we can start off with, why didn't the Founding Fathers, who were voting to ratify a constitution, why didn't they put voting as a right within the Constitution? Seems like a big one that they were currently using if this was a right. Mainly because there is no right to vote because government being a quote-unquote necessary evil, that's the only reason that voting exists is because a government exists. If a government doesn't exist, if you're just off with a tribe or off with your buddies out in the woods, there's no right to a vote. Like, that's where you also get into a mob rule, because if you have 10 people out and about in the woods and you said, okay, we're going to take a vote to kill Tom, well, Tom's probably going to vote no. And maybe Tom can get 2 or 3 other people to vote no, but all it takes is 6 of the 10 to say, yeah, we should kill Tom, and now Tom gets killed. Because, like I stated before, your individual liberty ends where mine begins. So voting has a direct action on people. As the mob rule goes, if everybody votes to abolish the Constitution tomorrow somehow, then that has a direct action. If it's 51% to 49% to abolish the Constitution, well, 49% of the population just got screwed. And it could be a preponderance more. That's assuming that, everyone voted. And then there's regulations on voting. So people go and vote who are 18 years and above, and those actions have a direct action on anyone who's 18 years or younger. And not only that, when you do vote, it's not like you vote every day or every week or every month or anything like that. So it's like, if you look at it like this, if the United States votes, which they never put this to a vote because it would never work, but let's say, hypothetically, the United States is going to vote on whether or not to have conscription for war with Venezuela. Conscription, if you're not familiar, is basically the draft, okay? So, the United States votes to have a draft. They vote for conscription. The conscription vote comes up, yes, conscription, we're going to have it, and we're going to have it for Venezuela. Well, if you're 17, you aren't able to vote. So if you turn 18 1 month later, that has a direct action on your life, assuming you're a military age male, which 18 you'd be a military age male, and you get drafted, conscripted into United States military, and then sent down to Venezuela to fight another stupid war for nothing. That directly affected you, and you had nothing to do with it. Now you're God knows where in Venezuela, dodging AK fire, who knows what. So that's why voting is not a right also. But I digress. Let's get into the Second Amendment. Might as well start off with the most controversial thing ever, apparently, even within the Second Amendment crew and groups in the Twitters of the world, is felons who are out have the right to keep and bear arms. I know. Violent felons have the right to keep and bear arms once they're let out. I know. Oh no, how could you let a violent person ever have a weapon? Well, I don't know. Why are we letting someone off, or why are we letting someone out of prison if they're that damn violent? This is more of the government solutions to government created problems. If the government can't rehabilitate a violent criminal, then the violent criminal should stay within the prison system. Okay? This is before we get into all the prison system and this, that, or the other. The basic fact is that if someone is too violent to be out or to have a weapon, then they're too violent to be out on the street. It's that simple. Okay? And especially if you're talking about white-collar crime. I don't care what crime you've committed. You've gone to jail, prison, whatever. You've paid your debt to society, you've now been released. And we have this whole subsection, this whole part of people who say, no, I'm pro 2A, but. No, I'm pro 2A, but we can't do that. We can't have these people. We can't do all of this. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so if we take your logic down the logical path, wouldn't it make more sense if someone was a violent felon or whatever, and we're going to start suspending rights because of past transgressions, even though you've quote unquote, paid your debts to society? Wouldn't it make more sense to suspend their Fourth Amendment right of illegal search and seizure and being, secure in your persons and property and things like that? Because they've obviously shown that they are willing to engage and commit a crime that they then were adjudicated to be guilty of. So wouldn't it make more sense, especially if we're talking about like drug crimes and things like that? Shouldn't you just be able to, as the authorities, whenever, once they've been released, just kick the door into their house, knock on their door, whatever, pull them over, and just search their shit? Doesn't that make more sense? And again, this is where the whole voting's not a right thing comes in again. Well, but we suspend the right to vote. Again, that's a privilege. It was created in the Constitution. It was created by a government. It only exists because government exists. So you can't suspend a right that's not a right. It's a privilege bestowed to you in the Constitution by the government. It's not endowed by your creator. There's no right to tell me what to do based on what the group thinks. That's not how this works. Oh, but we create laws that we do this and we have a president. Yeah, and there's a process for getting rid of a president. There's also another election every 4 years. There's any number of things. And by the way, the president doesn't directly affect me. Okay, there are some things that a president can do that will kind of indirectly affect me, unless the president decides, like Joe Biden did, to fly F-15s and nuke Oklahoma. The president doesn't really directly affect me. Still don't think he can do that, but he didn't do that. Win for us. Although if you nuke some states like New Mexico, I don't know that you would ever notice the difference. They have nuked New Mexico numerous times and Nevada. It's funny. No one even noticed. So, the other thing that comes up with the Second Amendment is like, oh, so are like grenades legal then? Yeah, I guess if you can decide to, I don't know, create one. Are bombs legal? Yeah. It's an arm. Oh, so nuclear weapons illegal? If you can afford one or build one, sure. How's that work out? You're going to build that in your garage, your underground bunker? You're going to get enriched uranium with centrifuges and hard water and God knows what, and you're going to do that? Okay, for what purpose? You're going to die too. You got to figure out how to launch. Oh, what if they put it in a truck and they drive it wherever? Okay, what if they do that with, I don't know, diesel and a bunch of like fertilizer and some blasting caps and a goddamn fuse? That's happened before. Did we ban fertilizer and diesel fuel? No. Napalm's not hard to make. What are we talking about here? Nuclear weapons? Oh, are tanks legal? Yeah, actually tanks are legal. It's just a shitty tractor, really. It's a great armored vehicle, but it's a really shitty tractor. It's really hard to do tractor work with it. I guess you can tow and haul and knock stuff over, but as far as like digging a hole or whatever, it's not very good for that. Oh, so you can just own a tank? Yes, you can own a fucking tank. The other part of this is if like General Dynamics or whoever the hell makes like the M1 Abrams doesn't want to sell it to the public, they don't have to. It can be a public, it can be a company thing of like, hey, we're not going to sell this to the public. Or a grenade maker or a missile maker or whatever. They don't have to sell this shit to the public. That's what we call the market. They can say, well, we're just going to sell to the government with the grenades and the IEDs, the mines and things like that. But again, those are all just arms. I mean, there's plenty of weapons that are made that are not sold directly to the public. I mean, it's just how it is. 4th of July, you can go buy all the fireworks you can possibly afford. So I can buy all the explosives I want, so long as it's in celebration of like the United States and our independence, or if it's like New Year's. Other than that, I can't have anything. Okay. None of that makes sense. So, Second Amendment is completely absolute. It's always funny when somebody argues with me about the Second Amendment. Oh, it's not absolute. What about violent felons? What about violent felons? What about them? You do understand that even under our current system with violent felons being released, they still find a way to get weapons when they want to commit another violent felony. whether it's a knife, machete, a bludgeoning object, or a gun. You can get a gun. Banning guns is not going to ever. First of all, the idea of banning guns in the United States of America is completely antithetical and anti-American. This whole country was basically founded with and by guns. That's just how it is. You can dispute it, you can argue it, you can do whatever. It's part of American culture. It's going to be a part of American culture. You know, if you're anti-gun and anti-firearm or anti-2A, you look at that like, oh, that's so gross. I can't believe that that's part of it. Well, if you're in Europe, if you're England or Great Britain, United Kingdom, whatever the fuck they're calling themselves today, Cuck Island, well, part of your history is sailing around the world and colonizing people. Okay? You can't get rid of that. Just part of it. You can run from it all you want, but it's there. It's what you're known for. It's what you did well. Okay? Stop apologizing for the thing you did well. That's like saying that Britain has to get rid of boats tomorrow because they were too good at naval warfare and sailing the seven seas and what have you. It's retarded. It's retarded. I mean, people talk about, oh, well, England got rid of their guns and this, that, and the other, and now they don't have gun crime. They didn't really have gun crime to begin with. No one was committing large-scale felonies or mass murders with guns. They had one school shooting in the 90s. They all freaked out, and Cuck Island went full-on retard and got rid of all of their guns. And now how's that working out? Now they're talking about we need to only have blunt knives. What does that mean? You know, a knife without a tip? Okay. I got news for you there, Kier. You're a, decent stone away or some sandpaper away from a tip. That's how that works. It's metal. It can be forged. It can be manipulated. It can be sharpened. Be forged into a tip. By the way, does that mean you can't have scissors? It's got a tip. That'll solve the problem. Maybe you get into the underlying issue. Did you ever think about that here? No, you didn't think about that. Because you're one of the ones who's guilty of not prosecuting the large-scale rape crimes by the Pakistani rape gangs. So there's that. But I digress. We're not going to get into that. You know, voting is one of those constitutional farces. It's one of those things that was created as if your government was doing something for you. And we're not going to talk about the repeal of the 19th and all of that stuff. That's a whole separate discussion. But the thing is like, creating this thing, acting like you're giving someone something, creates this like warm and fuzzy feeling within a person. Okay? I don't quite understand it. But you see the same thing playing out when you can vote for a guy, I don't know, in New York City, who's obviously a communist, who says that I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z. And yes, I understand that I kind of defended why someone would vote for him last week, but that's a completely different conversation. This conversation is about being able to vote yourself into some sort of like wealth. That plays into the whole voting thing. Part of how you take over a country, if you're the ruling elite, is you open the country up to decision making by people who should not be making the decision, and telling them that you have every right to make the decision for this country, no matter how bad it actually is. You know, I see that Merck put up something about Germany. I'm not exactly sure what that's in regards to, but that is a good example of someone voted a guy in one time and things went really south after that. Talked about that last week as well. So, voting is just another way to manipulate the public into thinking they're getting something. Again, it's not a right, it's a privilege. Just like SNAP, WIC, Social Security, whatever. These are not rights. These are privileges. These are entitlements. These are things that need to go away tomorrow. Our country would be better off if we tackled the problem with Social Security, how it's insolvent. It's been insolvent basically since day one. The problem with Social Security, the problem with Medicaid, the problem with SNAP. No one in this country is starving. That's nonsense. You know, did we have mass starvation before SNAP and WIC and all of these handout programs and food stamps? Can someone show me the absolute just starvation that occurred prior to having a government program to feed poor people? No. Was there just mass starvation during the, I don't know, Great Depression? Or did people step up and fill the gaps? Did organizations, did churches, did community outreach centers, what have you, step in to do that? Imagine that. The community came and helped people out. The community came and helped people out before. Government gets involved, it just gets worse. You know, as they get more and more involved, your dollar goes less and less, which means more people probably have to get on food assistance programs because they can't afford food because the government can't stop printing money, can't stop trying to fund Social Security, which is just a failing system anyway, and can't stop doing all the things. And all of this can lead back to people being able to vote. Masses of people being able to vote who should not be able to vote. And here's the thing. People should not be able to vote until they're like 25 at the earliest, maybe 30. It's absolutely ridiculous that an 18-year-old is able to vote, because at 18 to 28, you should be two almost completely different people mentally. The things you know, the things you've seen, the things you've done, the lessons you've learned, education-wise, whether that's formal or informal, whatever, from 18 to 28, you are basically two completely different people. And as I've said before, if you're the same person at 28 that you're at 18, you definitely should never, ever be casting a ballot for anything other than who wins like American Idol or something. Even then, I don't know. That's no, 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 no. 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 Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, we're moving on. There is one, if we're being honest, there is one enumerated right that probably could go away or at least be modified, that no one would ever miss, probably, and that's Amendment 3 of, housing a soldier in your home. It more points to what was going on at the time and watching, and I guess if you just, and I would assume that this applies to like police, but it seems like the Fourth Amendment kind of covers that, having someone stationed in your home. That's basically a government informant at the very least. Probably best not to touch it though, right? Let's not open it. I forget which exactly amendment it is, but it talks about in matters of $20 or more. I don't know. It's like everything now. I mean, what's not $20? Like, you can't buy the hat on my head for less than $20. So it's like that's, I don't know. Probably best not to open Pandora's box, though. I think we probably all agree to that. By the way, don't ever name your daughter Pandora. But as we get into the rights and we get into the enumerations and things of that nature, we get into some weird territory, which is some pretty interesting territory of, there you have freedom of movement. And then you get into the territory of, does that include driving a car? Okay. Driving a car, licensure, driving down the road, on roads, things of that nature. And it's like, I guess you can make the case that, one, you have freedom of movement. Two, just because you have a driver's license doesn't mean you actually know how to drive. It just means you were able to study well enough to pass the test. I mean, wrecks happen every day that are avoidable. I mean, some accidents happen. They're truly accidents, whatever. Not everything's avoidable, but it could be cut way down if people weren't returds. Then there's the part of the roads are put there and they're government and they're paid with tax dollars. Therefore, the government has no right to tell you if you can or cannot be on the road, because technically we own the roads because we are the taxpayers. We are the government, in essence. It's a social contract. If we give them a little bit of power for a little bit of order and protection from outside interference. It has nothing to do with roads. You know, I don't know. That's a weird one. But we can all agree that seatbelt laws are unconstitutional. Helmet laws on motorcycles are unconstitutional. This is really divulging into just like, or devolving into just what's unconstitutional, which is fine. I like telling everybody what's unconstitutional. I like to make you think. You know, the the driving one's interesting because you can drive state to state with no problem. You're not going to get stopped the second I enter. I'm not going to get stopped the second I enter Texas, just because I'm from Oklahoma. As much as I'm sure the Texans would love that, and we would like it vice versa, or Arkansas, whatever, because there is the freedom of movement, and the federal government is the regulates the interstate by highways and byways and in commerce. So there's the reciprocity of driver's licenses, even though I would assume the driver's license tests are not the same from state to state. I'm sure they're similar. But this also brings up the other part of like, there's a national reciprocity bill for concealed carry that keeps coming up, and I think is going to a vote, or at least is getting close. And you have people who are like, you can't be allowed to carry a gun here in this state because you are allowed to carry a gun in that other state. And it's like, well, yeah, because there's a reciprocity. Like, you don't get to just choose as another state whether my license is valid or not as a driver's license. So why would you get to choose whether my license is valid or not under like the Second Amendment protections? But also, why the hell would I have to have a license to carry a firearm? Because there is nothing in the Second Amendment that says unless the government says so, or unless you want to carry it concealed, which is fine. I'll carry it out in the open. To keep and bear arms and shall not be infringed are pretty damn clear to me. Everybody wants to get held up on the militia. Well, the militia is just us in Indiana on the first weekend of October. That's really just a militia, and there's nothing illegal about a militia. So I can keep and bear my arms because I'm apparently a part of a militia, even though we don't call ourselves a militia. But what is a militia? A well-regulated militia. Okay, so that's just like firearm safety where we don't shoot each other, right? Okay, so we're all well-regulated. We have yet to shoot each other, either on purpose or accidentally, in that first weekend in October, out in that random field. So I guess technically if you know another guy who's into guns, you're cool. So therefore you're part of a militia by proxy. Therefore I can keep and bear arms wherever I want. So even the whole militia thing is completely null and void when those fools want to talk about, well, it's a well-regulated militia. They probably don't understand what regulated means. Regulated meaning that you're in good working order and that you know how to do the things that a militia would do, i.e. maybe march and form and come together and have a gun and have it in, very good working order as well. So there's that. I don't know. Kind of losing my train of thought because as I'm thinking about it, it's completely insane. Oh, the national reciprocity. Yeah, we shouldn't have to have a license to carry a firearm. This beautiful state, you do not. And in many other beautiful states, you do not. As long as you are allowed to own a firearm, which, again, getting back to what I said earlier, the Second Amendment being absolute, don't care about your whole violent felons bullshit. If they're out on the street, then they're allowed to, then they have their rights fully restored. That's the craziest thing ever is like, well, they committed a felony, so therefore they don't have the right to keep and bear arms because they're a violent felon or even just a felon in general. But let's just relegate it to violent felons. It's like, okay, that's fine. Well, what if they were like a rapist, a true, forcible rapist? Does that mean they're not allowed to be around women anymore? And how do you regulate that? That's weird. So now you don't have freedom of assembly. Okay. Does that also mean you don't have freedom of the press or expression or anything else, or freedom of speech? That's weird. So you shouldn't be allowed, if you're a rapist, to say, hey girl, and then to get her attention because you may be trying to do your second act of horrific rape. I that's really, really odd to me that maybe we just don't let the rapists out. I don't know. Seems like an option. Maybe there's something that's, I don't know. If you're into raping, I think you're into raping. Kind of like the whole pedo crap. If you're into pedo, like that's just, we got no use for you here. Um, you know, Seems like a logical thing. But then there's the bleeding hearts. Oh no, you can't keep people in there. It's like the Eighth Amendment, a cruel, unusual punishment, or harsh. It's like, well, I don't know. It doesn't seem cruel and unusual to put you in a lock cage after you, I don't know, rape somebody, hurt children, killed somebody. Murder one, murder two. Manslaughtering. Jury of your peers thing. Oh, that's great, Mercury. Yeah. Mentally ill. Yes. So when it comes to the Second Amendment, there's this whole thing that's cropped up in the Second Amendment community too, and I would assume these are the same people that say no violent felon who's paid their debt to society is allowed to own keep and bear arms. They will tell you that no person who's mentally ill should be able to have a firearm, keep and bear arms. It should be locked away from weapons. And it's like, yeah, who determines mental illness? What does that mean? No one can define mental illness. I think I've talked about this before of like those people who want to talk about, well, they're obviously mentally ill. It's like, okay, that's okay. Fair enough. Define that. And then they can't define it. They're like, oh, it's in the DSM. It's obviously a psychological condition. Okay, great. Just define it. Just give me a broad strokes. Look it up in the Webster's. Do whatever. Just give me a definition. And they never give you a definition. And my rebuttal to them is, okay, let's start a little smaller. Okay. Everybody knows, or at least the majority of people know or know of someone who is an addict. We can talk about whether that's how deep you want to go of what an addict is. Let's say it's tobacco. Okay. Seems dubious, tobacco, caffeine, whatever. But let's say an alcoholic or a drug addict. Drug addiction right now is probably one of the all-time highs in this country. But there are some like borderline cases where you could say, okay, let's take alcohol. Very prevalent, legal everywhere. There's some restrictions, but alcohol is ubiquitous. Alcohol is everywhere. It's advertised. They sponsor things. You can't watch a football game without seeing like a Bud Light commercial or a Miller Lite commercial, whatever. So alcohol is everywhere. Okay, define an alcoholic. Someone who's addicted to alcohol, give me a basic definition. No one can do it. The best one I've ever heard, which doesn't hold up under scrutiny, is continued use in spite of negative consequences. Okay, define negative consequences. We can go extreme. You had a drink at the bar. You knew you probably had too much, but you were able to get in the car, drive, and then you killed someone. Okay, that's a negative consequence. Is getting a DUI a negative consequence? You didn't hurt yourself. You didn't hurt anyone else. Maybe you're speeding. Maybe you didn't hit the blinker. Maybe you rolled through a stop sign, whatever, and then that led to your DUI arrest. Okay. Yeah, now we're getting to some, it's negative because it's going to cost you money and whatever, depending on the state, it's going to do whatever. But again, is a hangover a negative consequence? Is your, you don't have as much money because you spent money on the alcohol. Is that a negative consequence? This is where we get. So defining what mental illness is, if we can't even define what addiction is and we're all around it, we've all been around it, we've all seen it, we all know someone or know someone who knows someone. Like it's celebrities. We can look at celebrities like they check themselves into the Betty Ford clinic. I assume Betty Ford's clinic's still around. It's just like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? You can't define addiction. How do you define mental illness? Is it like obscenity? We'll just know it when we see it, which is one of the worst like legal definitions I've ever heard in my entire life. I'll just know it when I see it. Well, are you? First of all, are you everywhere? Second of all, who the fuck are you? And third, or maybe that would be first of all, who the fuck are you? But third of all, that's such a dubious thing because that also changes over time. I'll know obscenity when I seen it. Well, obscenity in the 1900 was like showing your shoulder if you're a woman. Obscenity now, I don't know what that is. I mean, I guess we can get there, but we're like way down the line. We can all go, oh, a woman showing her shoulder, that's nothing. Well, a woman showing her whatever now, I mean, let's not go there, but we can all use our imaginations. But it's like, you know, what is mental illness? So my thing, I guess, as you get back to me, the being the Second Amendment is absolute. Yeah, even if you're transgender and you've been through the surgery or you're in some form of transitioning, you can legally own a firearm. Many firearms. All these. Well, you can't own these, but you know what I mean. Like, you could have this many. I don't care. Because I don't know, do I think there's something off with you? Okay, yeah. Does someone think there's something off with me because of what's on the wall behind me? Yeah. There's plenty of people out there that think I'm insane for what's on the wall behind me. Are either of us right? We don't know, because there is no definition. There's no solidified definition. Back, I don't know, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe even later, I think the last one was like in the 60s or 70s, people were doing lobotomies. Oh, he's crazy. We got to cut out a piece of his brain. No. And that was psychology. That was the science. That was scripture in the medical community, that if you had a screw loose, as they used to refer to it and still do, we need to cut out a part of your brain. And this happened to a lot of women, mainly who were just probably depressed. They cut out a part of their brain, like the frontal lobe. Like, they go up through the nose and chop off a part of your brain and put it in a fucking jar so you can hold it and put it on like the mantle and be like, yeah, Betty, she's good now because we took out her brain. See how small it is? We told you. Like, this is the craziest thing in the world. Of no one can tell me what mental illness is. It's always been this kind of like moving down the line of what mental illness is or isn't. The same groups who are the offshoots, the scions, if you will, or the same people who are the offshoots and scions of the same groups who used to tell you that lobotomies were fixing someone, or shock therapy, or any number of horrific things that we don't do anymore because we realized it was wrong. These are the same people who are writing like the DSM and the DSM-5 and telling us what mental illness is or is not. And by the way, if we take this mental illness designation and we run with it and we say, look, someone who's mentally ill cannot have a firearm, cannot possess weapons. Okay. Who actually determines the level of what mental illness is? It's going to be a government authority. It's going to be an authority. It's going to be the federal government, most likely. Maybe it's your state government. Let's just stick with the big bad federal wolf. And let's say that the feds are the ones who are going to enforce this and tell the states how they have to do this whole thing. Okay, great. How long down this mental illness road rabbit hole do we get before they go, look, if you're a member of the NRA, or if you're a member of Firearms Policy Coalition, or if you have more than one gun or whatever, we determine that's mental illness. Or if you vote for the Republicans or this or that, then we determine that's mental illness. Or if you are a dog person or a cat person, or if you love eggnog or don't love eggnog, then we deem this mental illness. And now all of these get confiscated for what? Or maybe I just speak out against the next pandemic and now I have mental illness, because obviously you would get the thing put into you to prevent someone else from contracting the thing that they got the thing put into them, to prevent contracting the thing, because that makes a whole lot of sense. And I'll wear this thing, this decorative like token over my mouth to show you that I'm on your team, because that will protect them, even though they're wearing the thing too. But if I don't wear a mask, then somehow it will get through their mask. So they have to be masked and I have to be masked to prevent this thing, which is airborne anyway, from getting to them through the thing that protects us both, but only if both of us are wearing it. So then I might be mentally ill because I look at that and go, well, if you're getting air in and out so you can breathe, then that probably means that whatever this respiratory airborne virus is probably going through or around that thing on your face. Unless you have a full-blown like Kim suit on with a respirator and you look like a fucking astronaut from a movie in the 40s. Even then, air in, air out. Something's got to happen. So maybe I'm the crazy person at that point, and they come and confiscate this because I'm mentally ill because I have a functioning brain. You know, this is like the whole Twilight Zone thing where the guy wakes up and the whole world's different, and he's looking around like, what in the hell? I lived the Twilight Zone for like 3 years during the whole COVID nonsense, as I'm sure most of you did as well, who have a half a fucking brain. I have to wipe things down for this airborne virus? What? Anyway, we're getting off topic here. That's a great point, Mark. I'm glad you brought that up. You made a great contribution to tonight's show. Anyway, I wanted to cover a little bit of news because it kind of plays into what I've been talking about. And really what I'm talking about is playing everything down the line, calling it like you see it, calling the balls and strikes, not ostracizing a group because they're not your group, not telling someone they don't have a right because they look funny, act funny, maybe are funny, but are still a human being. And by the way, while we're on the Second Amendment, it applies to what we call, quote unquote, illegal aliens or undocumented persons, whatever you want to call it. These are not American rights. They're just enshrined in the American Constitution, in the United States Constitution. These are not rights that exist solely in the United States of America for United States American citizens. These are human rights endowed by our Creator. It didn't say endowed by our soil of the United States or endowed by citizenship. It says endowed by our Creator. These are natural rights. And that naturalness does not stop and start at some imaginary border that we call the United States. And yes, I know it's a hardened border. It's a legitimate border. I understand that. But your rights as humans extend. This is why I have become so critical of our foreign policy and what we do abroad, is because no one in the last 100 years, possibly even longer, in our government, who has a say-so, who's in charge, especially after World War II, has ever said, if you're going to be our ally, here's the stipulations. Freedom of speech, right to keep and bear arms, and just go down the line. That's it. Why are we not exerting pressure on our so-called allies to adopt our actual way of life? Because we don't have any true allies. We have just entangling alliances. And we should not be allied with any country who does not have at the base of their society a freedom of speech, religion, peaceably assemble, freedom of the press, keep and bear arms, safe and secure in your persons, what have you, on down the line. Don't care if you let your citizens vote. I really don't. Because it's a privilege. It's a privilege for a select group. How you select that group, I don't really know. But it is a privilege. But human rights are human rights, and they exist beyond borders. So yes, an illegal alien has a right against illegal search and seizure. They have a right against having their speech abridged. They have Miranda rights. Why wouldn't they have the right to keep and bear arms? Now, the gun shop or wherever doesn't have to sell to them if they don't want to. If they can't speak in English, then they don't have to sell them a firearm. If they cannot communicate, they don't have to sell them a firearm. They don't. but it's not illegal for them to possess one, period. Is it illegal for them to possess a, I don't know, 8 or 10-inch chef's knife? No? Is that not an arm? Can they not have a sword? Can they not have a sharp object of any kind? Are they not allowed to have a baseball bat even though they don't play baseball? These are all weapons. Why can't you have a firearm? Where's the line here to all of you folks that say, oh no, only citizens of the United States have the right to keep and bear arms? F that. I think you're all wrong. Completely wrong. I'm open to any sort of argument you want to make. That's great. You can put it in the comments. You can hit me up on the Twitter. You can send me an email. You can, I don't know, send me a letter. I don't know. Do whatever. You can scream it into the void. I don't really give a shit. But anyway, we're going to cover some news. Mainly because it's, like I said, it's about calling balls and strikes. So apparently mortgage fraud is just rampant among, okay. Mortgage fraud apparently is rampant among certain elected leaders. Letitia James has been indicted for allegedly committing mortgage fraud by claiming a Virginia residence as a secondary residence for her, and that it would not be a rental of any sort. Eric Swalwell now is alleged. He's not under indictment yet, but it's been recommended, I guess, to have committed mortgage fraud by claiming a D.C. residence as his primary residence. Okay, I understand why someone would want this to happen. I understand why, if you're on the right, you're all about this because they went after Trump for this. And it is funny that Letitia James is getting her comeuppance. It is funny. But Letitia James really, just on like paperwork, said that it was going to be a secondary residence to avoid a higher interest rate of like 0.817%. Letitia James also, which over the life of the loan, the interest rate that she avoided by claiming it as a secondary residence and not anything that would ever be rented or subletted or vacation rentaled or anything like that, the amount she saved over the life of the loan, which I don't believe they listed whether it was 15, 20, or 30 years. It doesn't really matter. But the amount of money she saved over the life of the loan would have been $17,837, assuming she didn't pay it off or make extra payments. She purchased a home for $137,000 and only took out a mortgage for $109,600, which is putting 20% down, financing 80%, staying out of escrow, which is very, very smart. It's a way to buy a house. Basically, it's a paperwork thing with Swalwell. Yes, we all hate Swalwell. That's fine. But look, this is all bullshit, guys. The thing you should be mad about is the fact that if you're going to purchase if you're going to take a second mortgage or purchase a second home and you have the ability and the wherewithal and you meet all the requirements to get a second mortgage on a secondary home, why is it a higher rate if you plan on renting it? What is it any business of any mortgage lender what you're going to do with that home? So long as you abide by you have insurance on it to protect their investment, to protect their, them footing the money, even though they don't actually foot the money, even though it's just created out of thin air and actually creates more inflation. What do they care? What does it matter if Swalwell is using his DC residence as his primary or his secondary residence? If we're getting people on shoddy paperwork, this is going to come back to the whole Second Amendment thing where they're going to get you on shoddy paperwork because whatever, whether you're the ATF guy who has to keep paperwork and something wasn't legible, which is the thing they're doing. It's not right there. It's not right here. Okay. This is all complete and utter bullshit. Yes, it's funny, but Letitia James, she didn't do anything that no one else ever did. Now, should she be disbarred and thrown out of office? Yes, but not for this. It should be because of what she did to Trump, because it's completely none of her business. Just like this is none of the DOJ's business or whomever. If the bank wants to call in the note because they determine it's a fraudulent note, then they should call in the note tomorrow and make the bitch pay whatever the remaining balance is, or get a judgment against her, or seize the asset, or do both, or do any number of those things. That's how this works. If you think that someone borrowed money from your lending institution on fraudulent paperwork or under fraudulent circumstances, then you go after that person and you reclaim the asset. You can call in the note. This is a thing. Most people don't understand that Like, what happens when a bank goes insolvent is if they don't have a buyer for the bank or someone to come in and secure the assets, which is never the Fed or the FDIC, they come in and make sure no one burns the place down and gets rid of everything. But if like Bank of America doesn't come in and seize the assets and secure the assets, or Chase or whomever come in and basically write a check and secure the assets, they start calling in loans, notes, all of those things. They'll call in your car note, they'll call in your home loan, they'll call in everything. If a bank goes insolvent, that's part of the procedure. Now, do they try to avoid that? Yes, they do. But it has happened before. When Boeing had a bank, Boeing Bank, when they had I guess they had a credit union. When Boeing had trouble, they called in a whole bunch of notes. When Boeing left Oklahoma and moved out, they called in all of those credit union notes like that. Called in mortgages, called in car loans, called it all in. People went bankrupt overnight, lost their home, lost their cars, lost everything. Overnight. You lost your job too because you were working for Boeing, or if it's a couple, one of you was working for Boeing, so you lost a good paying job, lost your house, lost your car or cars. Nobody ever talks about that one, do they? No one ever talks about that. So that's what should happen to Letitia James or Eric Swalwell, assuming they're both guilty. Just call in the notes on them, seize the asset. I don't know why we have to do some sort of criminal action. Oh, but it was backed up by Fannie Mae or it's FHA mortgage. Okay. Since when is the government concerned about getting money back or fraud? SNAP, Social Security. All of a sudden we're worried about fraud when it's this. Yeah, is it wrong? Is it morally wrong? Absolutely. Does it mean she should never hold office again, Letitia James? And assuming both James and Swalwell are guilty, should they ever hold office again? Fuck no. Should never be near any power. They should never be in charge of a turtle. But to go to prison over it? No. Just call in the fucking asset. Quit being little bitches, man. Speaking of being little bitches, we've entered the great tamale debate again, apparently. Let's get something straight. I never said that tamales were bad, awful, unedible. They do kind of chalk up in your mouth because, the masa or maize paste is really not exactly pleasing to the palate. But I never said that they were awful. I just said that they were overrated. And what happened is once I said that they were overrated, everyone had to overcompensate because they are overrated, and they had to tell me how great tamales were and show me pictures of them ordering tamales with shit all over the top of them to make them taste better, like a, red sauce or cheese sauce or any sort of thing on there. Guac, any number of things. And always there was a dish off to the side. That was the actual dish. They just got that. So they had to overcompensate and tell me about how, oh, no, you've never had the good ones. You have to get them from this illegal chick who sells them out of the back of a Buick. You're probably going to get like some sort of disease. I've had those, okay? They suck. They're overrated. And what I mean by overrated is you're not ordering this over, Somalis are overrated too. You're not ordering tamales over the burrito, tacos, enchiladas, the carne asadas, and any number of things. You're not ordering this. This is like down at the low bottom. That's low man on the Mexican food totem pole, man. No one is ordering the tamales first. You're not. And by the way, if the chick in the Buick was selling those Christmas and Thanksgiving enchiladas, that's what you're buying. And everybody who knows what I'm talking about knows I'm fucking right. You absolutely know what I'm talking about. And you know what, Taylor? That's the best point ever is, you order them because you know the lady needs money. She don't want to speak it in English. That Buick's on its last leg, and they're about to deport old Manuel tomorrow. She's got to get a lawyer. So we got to buy the tamales. We're supplementing the income of the immigrants. That leads me to the eggnog debate. We are a pro-nog podcast. We will always be a pro-nog podcast. And I hear all of this nonsensical things of, if eggnog's so great, how come it only comes around once a year? Well, I guess I'll raise all of you guys by saying pumpkin pie. Vile pumpkin pie. Oh, well, if you can't be for pumpkin pie and part of your argument is it only comes around once a year, How can you possibly like eggnog? Because they do, because it's better. Because you people are uncultured. That's why. And you should learn how to deprive yourself of things from time to time, okay? That's why Lucky Charms, even though it's not great, is a good cereal, because it would be horrible if it was all the little wheat pieces, and it would still be horrible if it was all the little marshmallows. But you got to deprive yourself and get a little bit of each in there, okay? That's what makes it good. You got to deprive yourself of things. You know, it's why the McRib comes and goes. Now, the McRib is terrible. I thought it would be good. It has everything possible that it would be good. But it's not. You know, that pressed meat piece is just, I don't know, man. But my point is, and Whataburger nailed this, and then they seem to kind of stop where they would do the special sandwich or burger or whatever, and it would hit, it would be there for 3 months or 2 months or a month, whatever it was, and then it would leave. And you'd be like, damn, man, I really wish they had that A1 Thick and Hearty burger now, or that what was it, a smokehouse cheddar, something like that, you know? And then the second it came back, you were like, dude, we are going to Whataburger. I'm getting 2 of them. I'm getting the onion rings. I'm doing it all. And you would go to Whataburger for like a week straight. You know? I don't know. I don't know what happened. Learn how to deprive yourself of things. I love cheesecake. I rarely have it. You know what? When I do have it, it makes it that much better. You know, when you get stuff all of the time, it gets kind of old. You know, that's why places where in the country, and probably worldwide, but in the United States, where you have the seasons, you have 4 seasons, people tend to be a lot more sane. You know, when you're out on the coast, people are nuts. Like California, people are just fucking insane because the climate's better. So you don't have that, like, return to zero of like, man, it's cold outside, I don't want to go outside, or man, it's too hot. But all the in-betweens, and then tornadoes and floods and all of the different stuff, you know, the wind's always blowing. It just kind of keeps you level and sane. I also will draw the direct correlation here of most of the people who tell me how great tamales are from barren wastelands known as Arizona and New Mexico. So I don't know, these desert wastelands full of radiation from previous, you know, nuclear testing perhaps have warped what taste buds you might have had being born completely, to where it's like anything that's not radioactive sand tastes great. So you get that like chunky maize masa crap in your mouth and you're just like, oh, it's so good because it's not sand. I don't know. You know, an eggnog, much like bourbon or whiskey, which I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna really judge too harshly because I enjoy it most of the year. But like eggnog's better when it's cold outside. Okay, it's not gonna be awesome when it's 95 degrees. It's just not. Okay, it's still good. It's just not as good. It's like I change up the beer I drink based on the temperature outside. You know, you get into the winter, which is, tomorrow's supposed to be like 80 something degrees. So it's like, well, you want a lighter beer when it's hot outside. You know, you mow the lawn, it's 900 fucking degrees outside. You're sweating like a slave. The last thing you want is some damn like double porter. Okay? I want something pretty light. Something that's going to go down easy. You know, I mean, it's just like, Merc, what the fuck, man? It's just, yeah. You're a man of moral stands, Merc. Gotta love it. Yeah, bourbon in the winter, vodka. Vodka's just kind of bullshit. I just drink more beer. But anyway, the thing is when you deprive yourself of certain things, they get better when you have them. And you should all deprive yourself of tamales, even though they will never, ever be as good as anything else you can get at the Mexican restaurant. They're just not. They're not. Why do you think the tamale lady's always offloading them? She ain't feeding them to the kids. She's offloading them on Whitey because we're stupid. And she's playing the game. She's got a 93 Buick. She definitely needs the money. And here comes Whitey for $12 for 10 of them in a Walmart sack. May or may not have botulism. God only knows. But when you warm it up in the microwave, try to get it really, really hot to where it's sizzling. I don't know. You know, you get some like smothered and covered burrito, get it wet, as it's called. That's fantastic. Nachos are better. I mean, enchiladas are great. And you guys are truly, really, truly trying to tell me you go out there and you order in the tamales over that fajita platter. Them sizzling fajitas, lying sacks of shit. Yeah. By the way, pumpkin pie sucks. This same thing. Pumpkin pie is just bad. I'm sorry. And because of all of you pumpkin pie morons, you now have a whole generation being raised on pumpkin spice bullshit. Now, is there a direct correlation between the amount of pumpkin pie spice things going like this and then the LGBT going with it? I don't know. Correlation is not causation. But the question has to be asked, is the pumpkin spice making you all gay? It has to be asked. And I'm sorry that I have to ask it. But, you know, this is somewhat a controversial podcast. I will talk about the things I want to talk about. Ratings be damned, which we don't have. We have 4 people. That's enough for me. The chat is blowing up. And Romeo, you're correct. Pumpkin is not food. I don't know why I can't see that on here. Oh, you're probably at the top. Yeah. I don't know. Merc, I don't know if I can throw you out of here, but with the pecan pie thing, I don't know. We're getting close, buddy. Pecan pie is the best. It's perennial all-star. It's fantastic. I don't understand how you can't like pecan pie. I just haven't had even a bad pecan pie is great. What pie do you eat? Do you hate sweets? I know you hate ham, but strike me as like a crepe or a tart fella. I don't know. How do you not like pecan pie? I don't. This is this is unfathomable to me. Like, I can't process this. I can't process this at all. You know, I've got an aunt that with their pecan pie will take the pecans and she'll get them like diced up. So you don't get the big chunks of pecan. You'll get the little tiny ones. And then I guess she kind of glazes the top with that like Caro syrup or whatever. And it'll create like a little bit of a crust on top of pecan, like diced pecan. It's fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. Look forward to it every year. Like, I don't know, Mert. Coconut cream pie? Anything? No? I am at a fucking loss. It's like not liking mashed potatoes. Like, who the fuck doesn't like mashed potatoes? Like, you can get them so many different ways. You can get them unseasoned if you just like potato. And then it becomes like a consistent thing. You know, I don't know. My mind's blown here. I can't even function. I had a whole nother tirade ready to go, and I just, shit. So you don't eat ham or pecan pie. You don't like pumpkin pie. What the heck? Do you even celebrate Thanksgiving? Well, I'm with you on the sweet potatoes. Mercury, sweet potatoes are superior. Okay. Okay. I mean, I get it. Sweet potato fries are fantastic, but I mean, they just sit there Thanksgiving eating a sweet potato. Kid. I kid because I like you. Anyway, we've digressed here. I'm just going to leave it at this. We're going to wrap it up here. And by we, I mean me. And by me, I mean you. And by you, I mean us. But really, I just mean me. Your rights are absolute. There are no asterisks on any of your rights. Voting is not a right, it's a privilege. Pumpkin pie sucks. Tamales are overrated. And you should tailor your drinks. Eggnog is superior. And you should tailor your drinks based on the season. And if you live in a place that doesn't have seasons, that basically means that you're fucking insane and should never be allowed to vote. Ever. We're going to call it an end there. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for posting comments. I'll try to highlight more comments in the future. So if you guys want to hang out, post the comments. I'll make you a star. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.